All right, yeah, we're back from this UFC drought over the holidays. Hope all of you guys who tune in for this podcast had a nice, relaxing couple of weeks without the UFC to sweat. Now we have it back. Definitely some good value spots on Prediction Strike, particularly. There's some odds all over this card that I kind of don't agree with that are a little bit too far apart. So, should be a good amount of action to take advantage of on Prediction Strike this week. Let's dive into these prelims.
All right, way to roll us on in here into Dern versus Ribas 2. All righty. So we did get a AI enhanced version of Dern here, so that's a positive. Twitter's been going crazy with that. With that said, we have Olive versus Selecki here. What should we be expecting from this fight on the card?
Yeah, so Aliyev, he was supposed to go up against Ashmouz. It was a late replacement because Ashmouz stepped out, so Joe Selecki is now fighting. I believe it was tighter odds, Narulo versus Yanal Ashmouz. I think Selecki is an even bigger dog than Ashmouz was. And Aliyev, he's a really good wrestler. He's been competing in different martial arts forever. Stylistically, he's a little bit like Khabib, very, very good wrestler, and kind of sits behind what is a pretty good jab until he eventually takes you down. Yeah, like I'd say underrated hands. Like that jab is really, really powerful. Doesn't lower his hands really ever, and just goes straight for the takedowns after piecing you up a bit. Pretty fundamental striking overall, coming off a win over Rafael Alves, where there's a point deduction. And yeah, like I said, Selecki, short notice replacement. He's 5-3 in the UFC. He comes from season 3 of Dana White's Contenders series, and he's on a 2-fight skid. Last fight was at 302 against Grant Dawson, where he lost. Before that, he was the guy that got slam TKO'd by Drakkar Klose. I don't actually think Drakkar is that much better than him. It was kind of just like a really like a perfect TKO, basically landed bad. But yeah, he hasn't won a fight in 2 years. Aliyev is coming back from a bit away as well. I'd say it's a step up in competition for Naruyo. Joe is a relatively good veteran. I'd say probably underrated a bit. He's definitely got that veteran craftiness. He isn't the most powerful guy, Selecki. He's more of a high volume guy. He can grapple. He can finish the fight quickly with submissions. Not the most amazing takedowns ever, but high volume, technically sound, decent combos and straight shots, decent kicks. Like I said, not the best takedowns, decent takedown defense. He can get you to the ground though with decent body locks and trips. Really good grappler. My concern here is his fast pace. Like he gasses pretty quickly. He gassed quick against Jared Gordon in what was a super grappling heavy fight. Like I could definitely see this one being grappling heavy like that one was. Aliyev, he's only 24 too, so that should aid in the cardio. Really good athlete. Should be able to rely on his striking at least enough here against Selecki. So I like Aliyev by decision here. I think he's going to mix in the wrestling. Should just be the better overall fighter, better cardio.
I like it. All right. And it realistically should just be kind of quick as well because these short notice fights tend to go that range, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could see this going the distance. Like Selecki he's a veteran. I don't really see him getting finished that easily by Aliyev. Like I do think the finish comes on Aliyev's side if it does, but I think decision is most likely here just based on these guys' profiles. I mean, short notice definitely could have something to do with it, but I personally don't like. I need to look into like what Selecki was training for, if he was even training for anything, but I mean, I just think if anything, that means the cardio is going to be on Aliyev's side.
All right, makes sense. With that said, we'll move on to the next one here. So we have Fatima Klein versus Victoria Dudakova. For whatever reason, these names do sound familiar. So walk me through why they should sound familiar, I guess, or if they should.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, Dudakova, pretty well known name in this division at this point. Klein is kind of an up and coming prospect. I don't know what the exact odds are for this fight, but at one point I looked and Klein was like a 9-1 favorite, and she only has 7 professional fights under her belt. So it's like, I mean, If
That
you,
seems large.
yeah, if you're on the Klein side of things, like you can't really touch the line at all. I recommend buying in on PredictionStrike. If anything, the prices are pretty chill. And Dudakova isn't just a bum or anything. She's pretty exciting. We'll definitely let her hands fly. She can work in the clinch. She can also maintain distance depending on how the fight's going. If the range management isn't working well, she's not afraid to mix it up, get a bit ugly. Striking, powerful, clean, decent BJJ. Good doubles, singles, defends takedowns well. Coming off a loss to Sam Hughes, where the technical abilities looked good as far as the wrestling and the striking goes, but the pressure from Sam Hughes was just a bit too much from her. Fatima, good prospect, high pressure grappler, very dangerous on the ground. Works in strikes, and then works towards getting you to the ground and submitting you once you try to cover up to stop yourself from getting pieced up. She moves well on her feet, bounces around, basically just firing. Striking isn't the worst at all, but basically is just firing to close the distance to eventually get you to the ground. Good cardio, decent takedowns. Prospect, I think I generally like a lot. She's coming off a short notice to Jasmine Jasudavicius, where she got a takedown, but that was basically it. She's pretty small, very skilled. Grappling is good. Jasmine was just able to get takedowns on Fatima, and Fatima was basically not able to do anything off of her back. And Victoria isn't as good of a wrestler as Jasudavicius, but she has good BJJ and has the tools to stay on top. So it's like, me personally, I'm just not going to touch this fight with the odds we're getting. I might be inclined to buy some Fatima Klein shares on PredictionStrike, but yeah, I mean, outside of PredictionStrike, like I think it is something that could be live would be like to bet the spread on Dudakova, like a +3.5 or something, because I definitely could see. I don't know if this is going to be a unanimous decision. I definitely think it's probably going to be a Fatima Klein decision win, but like maybe Dudakova could steal a point or two. So
I like it. Sorry, I'm just trying to think. It's just so weird that like it is a -1,000 favorite here.
yeah,
Like I get it in one vein, but I don't know. It just seems odd. I guess
exactly. Like it's a fight. Fatima literally has 7 fights. Like that is not enough of a sample size to label someone a 10-1 favor. I feel like against an relatively experienced fighter like Dudakova.
I agree. It just seems too thin here, which is kind of weird considering the gap. But with that said, unless Grant, you got anything here, we'll move on to the next one.
No. How does the spread work for if it gets finished?
It's basically across. So the spread will be 3.5. Oh, how does it work if there's a finish?
Yeah.
Oh, if they
it's just whoever the winner is, right?
Yeah, if they get finished, it loses. If they get a finish, the spread still hits.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
if you have -3.5 and they get a first round finish, that counts.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
It's basically just a varied way of like going to decision almost.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's basically like across the judges' scorecards. If it's like 30-27, that's the final decision. It's like
that's where the 3.5 is.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I see that now. That makes a lot more
Like
sense.
a double result.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now we got Gadzhi is what we're going to call him, versus Bruno Lopez. I actually did watch a little bit of Bruno's last fight, and I'm going to start this off with a small prediction. Give me Gadzhi by knockout.
I like it. I think that's probably likely. Gadyazlov is that. Yeah, that's how you say it. Gadyazlov, undefeated in his career. 5 wins by stoppage, 4 wins by decision, which is something you kind of like to see. You can tell they're able to get that finish while they also have enough cardio to last the full 15 minutes. He's well-rounded, solid striker, good wrestling, does a good job of investing in the body early, throws kicks, straight punches, head kicks. He kind of is a slow starter, I would say, but gets into a flow state later in the first round, into the second round, starts moving a lot faster. Definitely real power. I'd say he's looking to strike most of the time, but he's definitely not just a striker. He has the takedowns when he needs them. Takedown defense, however, not really good at all. he can definitely have some success on the top. On the ground, though, he's coming off a win in his UFC debut over Ponzinibbio, where he had 5 offensive takedowns. Bruno, forward pressure striker, relatively high volume, is, I'd say, at least starts technical, throws good combos. He is totally fine with a firefight, though. Tends to get drawn into more sloppy in the clinch striking scenarios. Lowers his hands kind of as he gasses a bit as the fight progresses. Can also be a solid grappler. Decent takedowns, and he's heavy on top. Good control. I think, at least how I see it, is in order for Bruno to get this win, he needs to take Magomed down early. Because Magomed is really bad off of his back, and he'll probably get his own takedowns on Bruno if he waits too long to do that. Offense is there, though. Bruno, mostly a striker, does have some takedowns on the regional scene, but I generally think that Magomed's going to come forward, pump that jab, get the takedowns. I think he probably gets the job done here. Could even see a knockout. He's a really powerful guy.
Yeah, I agree. It just seemed like this Bruno guy was just walking around with his chin up the whole entire time.
Yeah, I agree.
And was just ready to get clipped. Interesting, though, that apparently like Charles was supposedly hyping up when he was first trying out for DWCS. Still don't really understand how he got the contract, but moving forward. All right, we've got another girls fight here versus Ernesta. Let's see, is there a way that I can fix this on my end?
There we go.
There we go. Ernesta Karakate. That's the best I got there.
Karate kicks.
First karate kicks, Jesus. Nicole Vercalier. What we're going to get here is that, like, if either of these women see me in real life, I'm going to get my ass beat for this penalty so terribly. But walk us through how these should be going between these two fighters here.
Ernesta is good, solid striker, good footwork, good head movement, throws and combos, can fight both in the clinch, can fight at range. I'd say her specialty kind of lies in her range management. Not a ton of power, so not really going to be expecting any sort of knockout from her here. I think it'll go 15 minutes, especially if it's a karate kicks fight. She's very long, uses that well in her striking. Takedown defense and get-up game could be better for sure. She is coming off a loss to Dione Barbosa in her UFC debut. Kind of a controversial one of those decisions that was polarizing, split on that. I think she probably won that one. Cagliari is a grappler, generally speaking. Kind of takes her time with the striking before closing the distance in on you, working you to the cage, eventually trying to drag you down to the ground. Takedowns aren't the best. She usually goes for cage work to try to get you down to the ground, and her clinch and body work are great in those scenarios. She works in the knees nicely, just good inside work. Definitely, once she gets you to the ground, good transition. She's aggressive with it. And here's kind of how I see this fight is Carrot Cake has pretty bad takedown defense.
Carrot Cake.
But Nicole's takedowns are not the best at all. So I kind of feel like this is just going to be a striking match in the middle if Carrot Cake is able to avoid it enough, and Nicole's going to be stuck without being able to get those takedowns, striking against the longer, better striker. So, I mean, like, what are the odds on this fight?
Your Carrot Cake's on sale at Publix.
I don't know. Like minus 250-ish for Carrot Cake.
Yeah, I feel like that's a weird line. Like, she's definitely shouldn't be a 2.5 to 1 favorite, but I do have her winning. I think she wins.
It opened less. It's gotten more and more
larger
in her favor since.
Damn.
Interesting.
So yeah, going with her.
All right, good to keep in mind.
Value too, yeah.
On to the next one here. We have Preston Parsons versus Jacoby Smith. Yeah, I want to say I've heard of Preston Parsons before.
Yeah, I'd say he's a veteran for sure. Jacoby, he was also on DWCS this year.
That would make sense because I would say he looks a bit familiar, but I'm not sure where I recognize him from.
Yeah. So Preston was originally supposed to go up against Andreas Gustafsson, who is also on this season of Dana White's Contender Series. He was like that, I think he's Swedish dude with like a
Is
bunch
he
of
related
tattoos.
to the legend?
No, I don't think so.
Rats.
But he was good. It's funny because Preston Parsons is kind of getting screwed here. It's going to be, at least had the odds suggest it was going to be a much closer fight than it does now against Jacoby Smith, who's a really good wrestler. And yeah, Jacoby, undefeated as a pro. This is his UFC debut. He comes from Fury, also, like I mentioned, fought on this season of Dana White's Contender Series where he looked good. He's around, I think, a 4-1 favorite right now. Jacoby is a really, I wouldn't say really accomplished, but relatively accomplished All-American collegiate wrestler. He wrestled at Oklahoma, placed in the Big 12. I think 3 of 4 of the years he was in school got All-American accolades. Preston Parsons is a good grappler. He has 9 subs under his belt, BJJ black belt. Comes forward aggressively with big shots that are kind of just there to set up his takedowns. Historically, I mean, if you just look at his record, he's kind of a grapple or takedown or bust kind of guy. Against Obon Elliott, he got a takedown, but he ended up busting anyways. He is definitely obviously the more experienced guy here, Preston Parsons. Good grappler. I think there's definitely a good amount of issues that present themselves against a guy like Jacoby for him. He is super athletic. He fights switch stance, high pressure. He sometimes shoots a bit too hard, which kind of leaves him to be countered. I mean, Preston Parsons isn't the most skilled counter striker or counter takedown artist, if you will. But yeah, I mean, Jacoby can also box. Fast entries, extremely strong. Parsons, I'd say, is probably the more well-rounded fighter of the two. Probably underrated relative to the credit that people normally give him. Definitely as far as his boxing goes, I think he's a pretty good technical boxer. Short notice might also have some impact here. So I think this fight could go longer than the odds suggest or what people think. I do still have Jacoby as my pick.
13 takedowns is absurd.
Yeah.
On average.
It's insane.
Is there something to be said about him being a good wrestler, but not particularly able to get finishes on the ground, where him getting takedowns could actually lead to him getting submitted at some point because Preston has that skill set?
I think that could definitely be a thing. And I do think Parsons probably has the better cardio too here. So because Jacoby has had cardio problems in the past. So I do think it could go longer. And I mean, if you're looking for like a deep swing, I feel like a 3rd round sub from Parsons isn't like the worst idea ever.
Yeah.
Could be one of those types of fights. But I do think Jacoby gets enough takedowns to grind out a win. I think
you think it's a unanimous decision with like 10 plus minutes of top control?
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. It's just I think the public is kind of sleeping on Parsons here with these odds, but Jacoby probably still takes it.
I like it. All right. On to the next bout. We got Thiago Moises versus Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden looks beyond terrified of the camera.
He hasn't slept in days.
Yeah. So walk us through what should we be expecting here?
Yeah, I'm kind of mad that the prices are the way they are on PredictionStrike. I guess maybe it's telling because, spoiler, Trey Ogden is one of my underdog picks of the card. I think he's about like a plus 160 dog in the books. You're not getting better prices for him, unfortunately, on PredictionStrike. But if you are on the Moises side of things, it's a really good buy on PS. Moises is a good grappler. Definitely a dangerous guy, works to positions well, good transitions on the ground. Mostly a grappler, averages about 2 takedowns a fight, decent technical striking, can hang with a lot of strikers in a technical boxing match in this division. Decent low kicks, uses those to work towards takedowns. Pretty experienced too for a 29-year-old. He's coming off a dominating loss to Ludwig Klein, where he was taken down by Klein, dropped twice. and Klein's a kickboxer, by the way. So that really wasn't a good look for him. Trey Ogden, an athletic dude. He can grapple. I believe he's 4-1 in his last 5. Solid takedowns, decently powerful when it comes to the striking. Well-timed takedowns, nice doubles. He's coming off a win over Loic Radzhabov where he had 4 takedowns. Moises is, I would say, the better grappler of the two. Ogden is also a grappler, which can kind of make you think ipso facto Moises just takes it. I do think Ogden could win this fight, though. I think it probably comes down to who gets the wrestling going earlier. And I think Ogden is just the better wrestler. He's definitely the more explosive wrestler. Thiago, I could just definitely see a world in where he's grappling off his back here, which is like a big difference from being the one getting the takedowns and wrestling on top. So I like Ogden to stay hot here. If this plus 160 line widens even more, plus 3.5 on the scorecard could even be a safe one. I definitely don't see him getting finished here by Moises.
Yeah, I will say on PS, you should be on the Moises side, just given the numbers there, though, because you are getting a minus 180-ish favorite at an underdog price here on PS. So if you differ from Jackson and you think that Moises has a strong advantage here, this is definitely the place to take it because it's the only place you're going to get that type of odd situation on him. So, yeah, just keep an eye on that.
And I was totally thinking before I looked at prices that Ogden was going to be my underdog shot of the week on PS.
Yeah.
So looks like PredictionStrike is in agreement with me this week.
Right on. All right, you guys know what to do. Invest accordingly. All right, Ihor Potieria versus Marco Tulio. This looks like a Walmart sneako going against.
It does look like Walmart sneako.
The most Brazilian-looking Ukrainian guy of all time.
With the most, dude, also the name is like half Brazilian, half Ukraine. But Tulio, UFC debut, making his debut as a favorite on PredictionStrike by a solid bit, also a 5-1 favorite in the books. That's just something you never want to trust. Who the hell wants a minus 500 debut? But he's going up against Ihor Potieria. And that minus 500 isn't because Marco Tulio is an absolute dog. I don't think it's because it's more of a reflection of his competition in this one. Marco, good striker, solid grappling, definitely a diverse skill set when it comes to striking, powerful enough for those knockouts. Decent volume, but he also, when he wants to, takes his time at distance with the striking, has some leg kicks in his arsenal. Good grappling. And he can definitely get it to the ground too, where he'll either look for a sub or ground and pound. Ihor, good striker. Definitely a very loose style, solid power, accurate. But because of how loose that style is, he tends to keep his hands a bit too low, definitely hittable. Pays to play a lot of the time. Takedown defense isn't the best, but he can definitely make you pay on the way in. He's an accurate striker, decent scrambles. Just one of those guys that's super finishable, but also super dangerous. He's coming off a decision loss to Cesar Almeida. And I think this one's set up to kind of put Tulio on a pedestal here. He has the power and the striking to hang. He's a better wrestler than Ihor is. Ihor did actually start wrestling a bit in his last fight versus Cesar Almeida, but it's just like it's too little too late into his career, where Marco Tulio's been kind of doing that for a while now, even though it's his UFC debut. So don't love the odds here. You're getting a much better price for Tulio on PredictionStrike if you want to take him anywhere, but I got Marco Tulio winning this here. I feel like it could kind of come from any angle. Don't have a method of pinned down exactly.
I like it. Don't be a fool. I'll take Marco Tulio. Alrighty. On to the next one here. We got Jose Johnson's for Felipe Bunez, who's trying to riz us up here, it looks like.
He is.
So I'm assuming this is featherweight or something like that. They just both look really tiny.
It's flyweight.
Flyweight. Okay. Yeah. I'll say they both look really tiny through these pictures.
Fun fact too, Jose Johnson, I believe the longest flyweight of all time.
And tallest, maybe.
Yeah.
6 foot 125 is absurd.
It's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, going up against Felipe Bunez.
Bro has to be a gust in the wind.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder. I guess it doesn't make too much of a difference when you're exclusively fighting 125 pounders, but he can't be that effective in a street fight. Like,
So what would it be like if you decided to put these guys through wind training? You know, like you put like a player's like, all right, go run a mile, and we're gonna put a parachute behind you. Like, are they gonna be able to go forward if they run full speed? I'm not
yeah, I
confident.
think they might be out of the weight class for wind training.
Damn. All
This
right.
guy's still cooking us. If us three pull up on him, in an
Oh
alley.
yeah, 100%. We're all getting like we're getting comboed right there and shipped to KFC.
Yeah.
But like, walk us through, all jokes aside, what we should be expecting from this like kind of bout here. It sounds like it could be a high action from kind of what we're discussing.
For sure. Jose, like obviously he has that length. He uses that intentionally. He likes to control the center with his range. Very fast to versatile. Um, good clinch work. Good traditional boxing. Not the best takedown defense, but decent or takedowns, I guess, but decent trips and clinches on offense. Solid jiu-jitsu, coming off a wrestling heavy loss to Asu Amabayev, where he just couldn't defend the takedowns. Can't blame him too much for that, though. Bunes is a BJJ black belt as well. Good subs, fast in transitions, good scrambles. Felipe, not just a grappler, definitely shoots real takedowns, will engage on the feet, always trying to make something happen. He'll shoot straight takedowns after trying to set you up for that with some straights and overhands on the feet. And Jose, I think, is going to need to defend a lot here. He is long, but he has historically had a really hard time defending takedowns. He gets taken down a lot. And then, I mean, he can threaten submissions himself, but he's not really a threat to be the one kind of enacting the aggression when it comes to offensive wrestling. And Felipe is honestly as good as a grappler as you're going to see in this division. So I think if Jose could defend the takedowns more effectively, I'd probably pick him here, but I'm going to go Bunes just because he's more versatile. And that is really good value on PS. So
yeah, the price is crazy. It's much more narrow anywhere else. So I think you trust that edge here for sure.
Yeah,
he's giving you that look for a reason.
Just exactly. He's ready.
All right, we got Punahele Soriano versus Uros Medic. All right, is Medic gonna need a medic? How should this fight go down? Is the other guy gonna need a medic? What's gonna happen here?
Yeah, we got Punahele going up against Uros Medic, the doctor. This is Soriano's second welterweight fight. We're getting pretty good price for here. I think it kind of matches up to the book's odds, if I'm not mistaken. The prices on PS for this one. Punahele is a pretty good striker. Lots of power. He was a collegiate wrestler, Division III. Didn't really translate to anything the UFC. He gets taken down a ton. He's been taken down 18 times in the UFC. He definitely stays powerful the whole fight, but he does gas a little bit in terms of his movement. Starts out hot. He is coming off a successful debut at this weight class, where he actually went back to the wrestling that I said he doesn't really use against Miguel Baeza, had 5 takedowns, going up against Uros Medic, who's a very clean striker, 100% finish rate in his 10 wins, very loose, very fast and accurate, definitely a killer. Takedown defense is not great. It's at 55%. It's a little bit skewed because he was taken down 7 times by Midigbek Oralbai, and he's coming off a win over Tim Means. Punahele definitely has that knockout power. He pretty much never used his wrestling when he first started in the UFC because he was just knocking guys out. But once his competition started to improve, he started to lose. And Punahele looked good in his welterweight debut. I still think Uros is the pick. He definitely can be taken down. I just am not. I just don't trust Punahele to commit to the wrestling at all based on what I've seen. Maybe he wrestles a bit more, and that could definitely prove a problem for Medic. But he is super technical, hits really hard, fast, has that 100% finish rate. So I am going to go Uros Medic by knockout here.
I think I'm going to lean Punahele by decision with the value here. I feel like leaning on that wrestling a little bit more will be the game plan in training camp in this situation. I mean, you never know. There's some guys that just believe super highly in themselves and can't really believe they're going to be outstruck in a fight and kind of just go into anything ready to lose a fight like that. But it feels like if he has any sort of game plan, that feels like the clear weakness here and the edge he would have in the situation. So I would expect this to be a pretty wrestling heavy camp and a spot where his team feels like they can get a decision win just by kind of outpointing situations. But we'll see how the cardio holds up.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those ones too where Medic the odds could even widen a bit more just because Punahele kind of has not the best reputation ever, and it could just get even juicier on the Punahele side of things.
Punahele. All right, on to the next one. Christian Rodriguez versus Austin Bashi. I'm not going to lie. I honestly thought this was just like an AI version of Raul Rosas.
Funny
that's
enough.
Another UFC fighter that would beat my ass.
Yeah. But. Funny you say that because Christian Rodriguez is kind of known as the prospect killer these days. And he, I think most recently when it comes to prospect killing, beat Raul Rosas, kind of smoked him.
Ooh.
So
18 takedowns?
Yeah, this dude Bashi's insane.
What is with the amount of, I get wrestling definitely helps your UFC chances, but it just feels like it is becoming an onslaught now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, wrestlers are just, it's such a different base, I feel like, than anything else. It's like if you don't know how to wrestle and you're going up against a wrestler, it's like there's not
You're just done, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're Pereira.
Yeah, exactly.
Is this a black and white photo, or is he literally just mono?
No, it's black. For some reason, all the contender series and prospect ones are all black and white. It's weird.
Could you imagine he walks out looking just like this, though? Exact same.
Two-tone.
Just looks like an AI character.
Austin Butler in Dune.
Yeah.
He's just all white.
That would be insane.
All right, but anyways, let's break this down. 18 takedowns on average for this prospect. We got a prospect killer. What should we be expecting?
So Austin, yeah, definitely a prospect. He's 23. But undefeated with 13 fights. Very well-rounded, I'd say. Good striker. Grappling, all around solid. He's mostly a grappler, though. He is real takedown, straight down the middle. Has no problem pivoting to chasing submissions if the opportunity presents itself. Otherwise, he's just going to be trying to wrestle you, get that control time on top. But he's very versatile, always looking to mix things up. Rodriguez, like I said, kind of known as a prospect killer these days. Solid movement, speed, just a good all-around striker. Takedown defense isn't good. He's been taken down a ton of times in the UFC. At 135 pounds, he had 3 wins in a row over 3 young prospects. Is Isaac Dolgari and Raul Rosas Jr., like I said. And he's now moved up to 145. He did just get subbed at 145. Yeah, and Bashi is basically the same thing, I would say, as those two prospects, except with better striking than the two. And I honestly just don't see, after him getting subbed at this new weight class, I don't think this prospect killer streak is going to last. I think Bashi probably ruins it. He's better than those guys that he beat because of the striking. So,
agreed. I also feel like Rosas has a tendency to just kind of let things fly and kind of let things get away from him a little bit. I feel like he's a little bit more overconfident in his ability at some times, and it feels like Bashi in this standpoint is just going to have a clear game plan of just getting this fight on the ground and just seeing where that goes. And if it does, I have a hard time believing there's any chance he loses. So I'm in agreement with you here.
Sweet.
I like it. All right. On to the next one, we got Chris Curtis versus Roman Kopylov. Kopylov looks like he just woke up. Chris Curtis looks like he is doing some sort of cut / yeah. All right.
I feel like this fight is higher up on the card. Chris Curtis is kind of the biggest name on the card.
That's a pretty big name right there.
Yeah. But yeah, Chris Curtis, great fighter, I'd say. Very powerful. Some of the best takedown defense in this division. Mostly a counter striker, I would say. He has very powerful, clean, short punches that catches opponents off guard, good leg kicks, good investment in the body early. Definitely takes time with his striking. Like I said, he's a counter striker, but he always has good movement, good body movement to stay away from meaningful strikes from his opponents. Has that Philly shell, which kind of is conducive to counter striking. Coming off a loss to Brendan Allen, and just the injury in that one was definitely a difference maker. I'm not going to draw a ton from that. Roman Kopylov has pro kickboxing experience, is a very good kickboxer by way of that. Nice combos, picks his shots well. He's only really beaten people who can't take him down at all. He has 87% takedown defense, which kind of like isn't backed up by his actual level of competition in terms of wrestling, but that's not going to be important here. Chris Curtis isn't really going to be trying to take him down. And he's coming off a decision win over Cesar Almeida, where he had 5 offensive takedowns and a knockdown. He looked really, really good in that one. And I'd say Chris Curtis, despite him not really wrestling at all ever, is probably the more well-rounded martial artist of the two. He just doesn't utilize all of his skills anymore. He's kind of just solely a striker. So it's going to be a striking match. Chris has great counter striking, so I think he is liable to get he is viable to get a knockout here. Roman, though, he's just the better striker, so I'm going to pick him, and I think this is going to be a striking match.
Yeah, like Kopylov, just for the kind of versatility of strikes. You've seen him end fights striking in a variety of ways with body kicks, body punches, even leg kicks. I feel like he just kind of spreads the wealth a lot, and you can cause a lot of damage doing that. So it feels like a situation where he's kind of just going to be striking all around, and hopefully you get one area to bruise up quickly, and then it should be able to find an area to target and kind of fight for a finish from there.
I feel like it's a pretty good price too, 480 versus 450.
Yeah, he's like minus 230-ish elsewhere, so
yeah, nice
for sure.
All right, I like it. On to the next one, we've got Abdul Razak Al-Hassan versus Cesar Almeida. Walk me through this one. What should we be expecting here? I'm not going to lie. I thought Abdul was a lot younger, just looking at images, than Cesar here is. So it's crazy to see how close they are in age.
Yeah, I know. And Abdul also just he has looked so filthy in his last few fights. Like he doesn't look like he fights like a 39-year-old at all. But Cesar Almeida is actually a longtime veteran martial artist. He is one of the best kickboxers of recent history. He beat Alex Pereira in kickboxing. If you remember that, came in to the UFC, went up against Ihor Potieria, beat him there because Ihor wasn't able to make anything happen on the ground, where Cesar is kind of useless just because he doesn't have any sort of formal training on the ground. Abdul, powerful striker, has one punch knockout powder. Also, high level judoka, doesn't use it at all really in the UFC just because the striking has kind of been there for him. He's super talented though, coming off a no contest against Cody Brundage, where he was just looking super good until some back headshots kind of came into play, ruined things for him. Cesar, pro kickboxer, like I said, beat Pereira, now in the UFC. This is his second fight. Does exactly what you'd expect a good kickboxer to do: clean combos, good footwork, powerful on the feet and the striking. Takedown defense is expectedly terrible. On the cage, it's fine. If he's taken down, he actually does a better job than you, or at least as evidence from his first fight, he does a better job than you would think he would of getting back up. He was really controlled in that win against Ihor, despite some illegal things going on. There was an eye poke. Abdul is, like Wells said, 39 years old at this point. Doesn't really use any of the judo that he had practiced for so long. And if he did, I think this could be a really clean win for him. Like Almeida, you got to be able to get through the guard, eat a few shots on the way in, especially if you're not going to try to fight in the clinch with that judo, trip him up. You need to tie him up, which is it's another really hard thing to do against a kickboxer when you're not really using anything but striking. He isn't going to be shooting takedowns here. He basically has to clinch up to win. So I am going with the high-level kickboxer and Cesar Almeida.
I like it.
Good price.
Yeah, nothing else to add. Agreed.
Perfect. Let's go on to the next one. All right, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Carlston Harris. I remember asking Jackson about Ponzinibbio a long, long time ago, but I need a refresher. So what are we expecting in this bout here?
Yeah, Santiago is the current Spanish broadcaster for the UFC, so has one foot in the door to his second career, which is, I mean, never really a good sign, I'd say. We could probably
go Harris by knockout?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, but we could probably go back and like look at the data of people fighting while they're also broadcasters, like our guy, Anthony Lionheart-Smith, and it probably doesn't look amazing, that record, but he's
it's not like Carlston's young either, though.
Yeah, no.
If you had a 31-year-old or something going into that spot, I would feel a lot more comfortable taking that as the lean. But you have like a 1-year difference.
Yeah, exactly. They're both old guys. They're both senior citizens for sure. But Santiago, kind of a rangy striker, very good. Stays out of the pocket most of the time. Good volume. Because he's high volume, even though he doesn't really have knockout power, he could still get TKOs just because of the constant pressure. He's coming off a close loss to another really old dude, Muslim Salikov, where he had 2 takedowns and defended 5 of Salikov's. And Carlston, good striker, pretty well-rounded, opportunistic in his grappling, can definitely get things going in scrambles. Solid wrestling, doesn't really shoot straight takedowns, but he has good trips, good body locks, good cage work. As soon as he hits the mat, he's always aggressive, looking for something, looking for submissions when he sees the opportunity. Coming off early knockout loss to Chaos Williams. And yeah, both of these guys are probably fighting for their careers here. We've got Battle of the Old Dudes. Ponzinibbio is 1-4 in his last 5, I believe. And I do think he can win this. He probably has the better cardio at this point in their careers. He's faster, cleaner striking. Carlston, on the other side of things, is probably more powerful, more aggressive on the ground. And he was a bigger underdog a few weeks ago. He's probably Ponzinibbio, that is. He's probably the better fighter. I would say he's definitely the better fighter of the two. But I think, honestly, him being 1 foot in the door in his other career is kind of a problem. Like, I feel like that transition doesn't really bode well for a lot of fighters. So I'm not too certain about this fight. I'd say this is my most uneasy pick of the card, but I'm probably going to go Carlston Harris here.
I like it. Same with you, Grant?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Moving on to the next one. And the final one, we get the Facebook award. Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Ribas. So what should we be expecting between these two? It's a repeat since we're getting the second next to it. So what are the highlights I guess we should kind of fixate on for here? Or what differences to be potentially made?
Yeah, so the 2019, prices, this is a fun one just for PS investing. We've got 2 fighters at the exact same prices. Obviously, you're probably not going to be, if you're on the Dern side of things, investing in her on PredictionStrike. But great value for Amanda Ribas here, who absolutely dominated Mackenzie Dern in their first fight in 2019. And Dern is a really, really good grappler, probably one of the best we've ever seen in this division. But her results are kind of a mixed bag in mixed martial arts just because she doesn't really do anything outside of her grappling, hasn't really progressed any. She has progressed, I guess, just with experience, but no noticeable improvements to any of her skills really outside of her grappling. She has an abysmal 16% takedown accuracy. She is just super tough, totally okay with paying to play. It's almost impossible to phase her. She'll just keep coming forward, throwing strikes at you, doing whatever she can to get you to the ground. She also miraculously had, I think, a pair of takedowns in her last fight, which is something to know. So maybe she is improving there, but has no quit. Like I said, coming off that win over Lupi Godinez, the striking and the forward pressure were really what got it done there. But she did have a few takedowns. And Ribas, really good fighter. This fight's going to be at 115, where she's had the most success. Kind of started her career like Mackenzie Dern as a grappler, did a better job than Dern throughout her career, I would say, of adding in the striking. Now she's really solid everywhere. 5-3 striking differential, great for a grappler. Takedown defense is 85%, plenty of cardio, good jujitsu, decent power. And I mean, what I always like to look at between, I mean, in rematch fights is what's changed between the two since that first fight. I think they both improved. I don't think anything insanely dramatic. Mackenzie probably looks a little bit better in the striking. Wrestling still looks pretty abysmal. Grappling is as good as it's always been. Ribas also improving. And I think kind of the telltale sign, at least for me here, is that in the first fight, Amanda, like, even though Mackenzie Dern's thing is her grappling, Amanda didn't worry about it at all. She was still getting those takedowns, was never really put in danger, even when she was on the ground grappling with Mackenzie Dern. And I think, and I mean, the first one was 3 rounds. This one's 5 rounds. I think if anything, 5 rounds probably benefits Amanda just because she's been there before. So I think Ribas is a really safe pick here. Probably one of my favorite investments on PS.
All right.
Yeah, big time. I also think just the variety of paths to victory is much wider for Ribas, whereas with Dern's, most of her wins recently, both fighters have been pretty inconsistent in their last like 6 or whatever fights since they fought each other. Both have like 3 losses, 3 or 4 wins since then. So kind of an up and down, tumultuous ride for both of them since that fight. But it feels like Ribas has a lot more opportunities to win this one. You could win it on the ground with a submission. Potentially even fight towards a knockout, and she could win by decision in this one as well. Whereas Dern, most of her fights are ending by just kind of outpointing the opponent, shooting a ton of takedowns, hoping a few land, and then kind of just outpointing the opponent from there. So I like Amanda just for kind of the many options of ways you could get this victory done.
I like it as well. All right. With that said, I don't think there's much more to be said. This is a longer one. Get used to it. Maybe use 2x audio. I do that to get through some things just as well. It's always good when you're listening for valuable information specifically. But invest accordingly. And yeah, we're going to keep this going forward. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share with your friends. And look out for some NFL playoff content coming out as well. But until next time, my friends, hope you all have a great day. And yeah, peace, y'all.
Peace.
Peace.